December 1973. The day after Christmas, I drove Morris and Shirley to the Philly airport. They were going to Hawaii for the first time. A lot of things have changed in the past 4 years. The most unexpected was my relationship with Shirley. Now that I have proven myself to be more than capable of running their factory, Shirley has been dragging Morris at least twice a year on what she called her exotic vacations. I'm now Shirley's little boobala, and she slips me an extra $100 bill every week. Outside of working 6 days a week, life was pretty good. I was dating a few girls from both tribes, but nothing serious. The whole hippie thing was just about finished. The flower children who survived gave up all that peace and love crap. They hung up their beads, threw out their old bell-bottom jeans, and started buying gold chains and 8 tracks by Kool and the Gang. A new plague had arrived called disco. If you thought we looked funny in the 60s, then picture this: platform shoes, polyester pants, printed silk shirts accented with a gold chain, Elvis sideburns, and a hairdo with enough hairspray on it that you'd wish your dick would stay as hard. And there were plenty of drugs: cocaine for your nose, ludes for the hoes. I kept my nose clean, and I didn't need ludes to get laid. So I stayed with the drug of my choice, making money and reaching for the good life. I had my own apartment with shag carpeting, a wall unit with a color TV, and a good sound system. There was enough plexiglass, chrome, and mirrors in the decor that on a sunny day, you could open the drapes and get a tan without leaving the apartment. My bathroom had wall-to-wall carpeting, a shower curtain, and accessories to match my soft-cushioned toilet seat. If you took a peek out front, you see my '73 red Corvette parked by the curb. I had just walked into the office when Mona, our secretary, answered the phone. "Richie, it's Shirley," she said. I took the call in my office. "Shirley, how are you, and what's Morris up to?" "Well, doll, he's doing better," she said. "Better?" I said. "Better than what?" "After dinner last night, Morris started having chest pains. I took him straight to the hospital. Thank God it wasn't a heart attack, but they wanted him to stay overnight just to be safe." She went on complaining about all of the wrong foods he ate. After a good 10 minutes on the phone with Shirley, I started to get chest pains. They returned home a week earlier than expected. I drove down to the airport to pick them up early Sunday morning. He departed the plane in a wheelchair. He didn't look good. His face was drawn, and he looked older. As I wheeled him through the airport, I didn't say anything to him about his health. I passed along the good news about his business. A deal he was working on with a chain of department stores out west came through, and Al Katz had signed a lease for a store in a new mall scheduled to open that spring. I could tell he had more important issues on his mind than business. On the drive back to their house, he fell asleep in the back of the car. Shirley told me that she was taking Morris to a cardiologist, and we should keep his condition to ourselves. I agreed. There was no sense in feeding the wolves, but there was one exception. Morris only trusted Al Katz. You could forget about his other accounts. At first I used to think he was a little paranoid, but it didn't take long to see where he was coming from. We lost a few accounts over the years, but when we lost Coleman's department stores, Morris was beside himself. In the 20 years that he did business with them, he never had a problem. He always bent over backwards for them, so he couldn't understand why they suddenly stopped doing business with him. Later, he found out that they had hired a new buyer, a real asshole from California. Without even the decency of a phone call, he refused all new orders. Morris tried for a week to get in touch with him, to no avail. Losing the account was bad enough, but not knowing the reason why was driving him crazy. He deserved to know why he lost this account. He needed an answer. When Morris finally got to talk to the buyer, he said they were dealing with a company out of Mexico that gave them better pricing and delivery. There wasn't much Morris could do about it. That's when I first heard the term wetback labor. Morris rambled on and on for days. "We're in a cutthroat business," he said. "It's no different than running a whorehouse. Everyone is trying to fuck you. The days of loyalty are over. They leave us just to save pennies. And what about us Americans? Don't we have to eat too? Today it's Mexicans. Tomorrow it will be the Chinese. What did I do wrong? So I made one little mistake. What? I was a few days late on one delivery. After all these years, it's just not fair?" I calmed him down with one of my Uncle Anthony's favorite lines. "It's sort of like you may have only sucked one cock," I said, "but you'll always be a cocksucker." That's it, he said with a smile. "That's the answer I was looking for. You hit it right on the head." For some inexplicable reason, I always had the knack to lift his spirits. The following year, Morris's health began to deteriorate. He was in and out of the hospital. I was given more responsibilities, which I accepted. I was earning decent money, but like most employees, I felt that I was worth more. There were two other manufacturers in the building. One made women's lingerie, the other plastic slipcovers. One day I was approached by one of them. He took me out to dinner at a well-known restaurant in Center City. He wined and dined me while offering me more money, as he buried any notion that there might be a future with Morris. I told him that while his offer sounded good, I would have to sleep on it. When I got home that night, I didn't get much sleep. I was stuck between the fuck 'em or don't fuck 'em syndrome. Fuck 'em would say, nothing for nothing. You worked your balls off for him. You made him a lot of money and in the process made his life a lot easier. Don't fuck 'em would say, would you do that to a man who has turned your whole life and world around? Where would you be today without his help? Probably digging ditches or worse yet, being buried in a ditch somewhere in Vietnam. The don'ts outweighed the fuck 'ems. During the first order of business the following morning, I told Morris about the job offer. He laughed for a moment, then sat down at his desk. How did you sleep last night? He asked. Not very well, I said. Well, I don't think you're going to sleep any better tonight either. He stood up, walked over to the safe, opened it, and took out the books. I felt Mr. Fuckham was about to pay me a visit. How long has it been since that day at Moe's when I first offered you a job? He asked. It's been over 6 years. Have I been fair with you all these years? Morris, you've always treated me like a son. That's why I would never try to screw you. I just thought you should know about the offer. You did the right thing by telling me. You know, I would have hated to hear it from someone else. Now let's get down to business. Are you open to counteroffers? I knew he was kidding with me, so I played right back. Morris, I want to stay with you. There is no more you can offer me that will tempt me to leave. I think you've made the right decision. I'm getting up in age. You know my health is not the best. I have plenty of money. So Shirley and I have made a major decision. It's time for me to retire. Morris, retire? You're kidding, right? It's time, Richie, and if everything goes according to plan, by this time next year, God willing, we hope to be living in Florida. Now my problem is, what am I going to do with the business? If I put it up for sale, there's a good possibility that we could lose some of our accounts while waiting for the right buyer. I'll be honest with you, there aren't that many buyers out there today, and I don't have the time or the patience to look for one. So, tell me, Morris, what are you going to do? Shirley and I have talked it over, and we want you to take over the business. I have it all mapped out right here in these books. I was going to wait until after the holidays to talk to you about it. Now that you're in such high demand, I better grab you while I can. We spent the rest of the day going over the books. The price of the business was $300,000 above the table, and another $100,000 in cash under the table. Kiddingly, I said, Morris, that's a lot of cash. We're going to have to get a bigger table. The business was grossing a little under $700,000 a year. After expenses, the net profit was over $100,000. Morris showed me how to keep 2 sets of books, one for Uncle Sam, the other for Uncle Me. Al Katz was a genuine half-patriot. He paid half check and half cash. I was given 10 years to pay Morris out with no interest and no money down. It was the perfect deal for me and a better one for him. At that time, there were a lot of businessmen in Philly, mostly Jewish, in the same predicament. They went into business after World War II and worked day and night to make their dreams come true. They made sure that their children had every opportunity to succeed in life. The children who were smart enough to take advantage of those opportunities attended good colleges, earned their degrees, and pursue professional careers. Rarely did they choose to get involved in the family business. When the hippie plague hit, there were more than a few parents from all tribes who lost children to drug abuse. From what I had seen, the Jewish families in Philly and the surrounding suburbs who, like the Cohens, owned businesses took heavy casualties. After we finished going over the books that day, he took me out to dinner. No fancy restaurant downtown this time. We ended up back at Moe's Deli, where our history had started. Before we parted that evening, we stood outside in Moe's parking lot, and Morris said, Richie, life is a funny game. You never know what cards it will deal to you. I always thought that one day I would be turning everything over to Marty. He hesitated for a moment, then said, I want you to know I'm glad it's you, and I'm sure that Marty would be too. We shook hands, then hugged one another with tears in our eyes. There was nothing more to say. The deal was made. That was the last time I ever heard him say Marty's name, and the last time he bought me dinner. I was in my second year as the owner when Morris and Shirley sold their house and moved to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. That's the pit stop for every retired Jewish businessman before heading to the promised land. I also made a move. I'm renting an apartment in an upscale high-rise building in Center City, Philly, 20 minutes from my factory. At the age of only 26, I was the youngest and largest manufacturer of children's clothing in Philadelphia. Not bad for a goy with a 10th grade education.